Behind every successful endeavor in life is a relationship built on trust. Welcome to The Trust Doctor, restoring trust and enriching significant relationships. A podcast focused on helping you nurture healthy relationships. Join thought leader and world-renowned expert on relationship and empowerment coaching, Dr. Patty Ann, and her special guests every week for insightful and meaningful conversations filled with great takeaways that will help you build healthier business partnerships and happier romantic relationships. Are you ready to restore trust and enrich the significant relationships in your life? The Trust Doctor, Dr. Patty Ann, is in.
Welcome to Dr. Patty Ann's Restoring Trust and Enriching Significant Relationships podcast. Today, I am so excited to have my good friend, although he might not always want to admit it, but my good friend, Craig Coppola, who is coming here to us from Arizona. So thank you so much, Craig, for being here.
Dr. Patty Ann, this is my pleasure, for sure.
Thank you. So let me share with you a little bit about Craig's bio, which I have to put my reading glasses on because there's so much information here. I don't want you to miss one important nugget. So Craig is the top producing office broker. And if you look behind him and you see the wall, you will see all of his accolades, including having been drafted for a professional baseball team as a lefty pitcher.
First baseman.
First baseman. So he's got the stretch going on.
There you go.
All right. So anyway, I had to say that for Craig because I think that's such an awesome accomplishment. But he's the top producing office broker in the 60+ office, Lee and Associates, 40+ years history. He started working at 12, so he's not that old. He is one of the founding principals of Lee and Associates, Arizona, and he received the William J. Lee Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015. And I will tell you, he hasn't stopped since then. He has earned the top 3 designations in real estate industry. And the letters won't mean anybody to the listeners, but it's sort of kind of a big deal. And less than 33 people worldwide hold all 3 designations. So listen up because Craig has a lot of wisdom to share with us. And he has been named the NAIOP Office Broker of the Year, not once, not twice, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 times. And in 2020, he was awarded the NAIOP Award of Excellence. And beyond his successful professional career, and I can share this with you, I don't have to read it, Craig is an avid athlete, having been an amazing athlete in his youth, where he continues to scale and climb the Grand Canyon in his backyard, because every time I want to talk to him, he's in the middle of packing up his backpack, going on a retreat for how many days, and he'll be out of the loop. So he is definitely one with nature. He was drafted and played in the Minnesota Twins baseball organization, and he represented the USA and won a world championship in Taekwondo, which I did not know about you, Craig, until you sent me this.
How about that?
There is nothing this man can't do. Anyway, I really want you to hear his wisdom from the horse's mouth. And I will tell you, Craig is married to a wonderful woman named Tracy, who, Lord knows, she must be a saint. And
we just had our 32nd anniversary last week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, pretty
That's
good.
A big deal. And Craig has 4 incredibly accomplished, kind adult children. And he just had his first, I'll let you tell him.
Yeah, first grandbaby. He had little Beckett Colbert, was born a month ago. So that's kind of fun.
So excited. So
yes.
Craig, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this podcast with me. So tell me about how your journey started.
You know, I was always a baseball player. So my dad is a baseball coach, coached me in high school. He was a high school coach. I worked my way through college playing baseball, got drafted, and, I thought I was going to be a baseball player. When you're that age, 21 years old, that's what you think. And then the Minnesota Twins had other ideas. They released me. And so the journey began, the real journey began. Obviously, the pre-journey was this baseball journey, but the second was, and I was telling somebody this story the other day, that I really came to understand that I was going to be an entrepreneur when I played baseball. I told the story that when I played for the Minnesota Twins, they were owned by a family, and one of the daughters had married a guy named George Brophy. And George Brophy was this very large, rotund man who had never played baseball in his life, but because he married into the family, he got director of minor league operations. And they had this saying when you played in the Twins minor league, that when George Brophy came to town, he never left alone, meaning he would release players when he showed up. And when they released me, I had this incredible feeling saying, I don't want anybody else to run my life. And that's when I became an entrepreneur. I said, it took me about 2 years to get to the spot where I was commissioned only, but I haven't had a paycheck since 1984. And so that was a big turning point. And that's how the journey began, to say, hey, I want to have my own business. It took me another 7 years to start our own business, but that George Brophy and the being released by the Minnesota Twins and have other people make the decisions in my life was a big turning point for me.
Wow, that's really interesting. So he comes into town and he never leaves alone. What a legacy. So share with us, you mentioned 7 years. What happened? What transpired during those 7 years, Craig? So
I took a job. I had no experience other than playing professional baseball for a short period of time. I did have my degree, and I wanted to work.
What was your degree in?
I have a finance degree.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have a finance degree, and I have an associate's degree, and then I went back in the late 80s and got my master's. So I have an MBA as well. But during that 1984 period of time, I knew I wanted, and back in the early 80s, there wasn't opportunities like there are for the young people today, where they can go to tech companies, risk a lot of their opportunity on these startups. Back in those days, if you wanted to risk your career and be on your own, it was very hard to start your own business if you had no capital, which I had no capital. So there were three options. One was to be a stockbroker, an insurance salesman, or a commercial real estate broker. And those were the three big ones where you had the opportunity to kind of make to reap what you sowed. And so I interviewed because I had a finance degree with all the major stockbrokers, Merrill Lynch, and at the time, A.G. Edwards, and there was one other one. And they all three turned me down. So then I turned to real estate, and I couldn't get into as a broker. So I interviewed with a company called Grubb & Ellis, which is no longer around, but it would be the equivalent at the time. There was Grubb & Ellis, Coldwell Banker, which is now CBRE, and Cushman & Wakefield. Those were the three big ones. None of the other two would even interview me. Grubb & Ellis said, go get some experience. I got some experience. I came back, interviewed a second time a year later. They said, you still don't have enough experience. Took a second job, got another year's experience. And the third time I interviewed with them, 2 years later, they accepted me. And then my career started right there. In 1984, I started with Grubb & Ellis. And I was with them for 7 years until we started Lee & Associates, Arizona.
Wow. So it sounds to me like your persistence as an athlete and your grit and determination is what fueled you in your entrepreneurial endeavors, or at least the start of it.
No, the number one word that I would use for my entire career is not intellect, not good looks, not anything. It was grit. It was the ability to have long-term goals and to step towards those goals on a daily basis. So, I do get asked the question, what's the number one thing for your success? And my answer is, obviously I've put myself in a very good growth market, but the other answer is just grit and determination, for sure.
And how do you use your grit in your relationships with people and growing your business? Because the theme of this podcast is the Trust Doctor. It's all about relationships and relationship skills that help create success. Because as you know, Craig, I believe strongly all success is predicated upon the ability to create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships. And anyone that knows you knows you are a master at doing all of that. So what do you attribute to that? Is it just grit, or is it other traits?
No, I think when people think about grit, they think about, well, I'm going to push through this pain. Well, I'm going to do the extra, whatever it is. Like, and then again, when I looked at grit, I looked at it from a holistic standpoint, and it ties into your relationship standpoint. So I and you know this because we're close, that I literally track every single day my wife and 4 children. Did I connect with them today? And I track that every day of the year to make sure that I'm connecting with my family. And I remember distinctly early in my career and I don't know what it was, maybe it was natural, what it was not. Every cold call, every time I met somebody, every relationship when I was 23, 24 years old, I simply said to the person, I am going to know you for a very long time. How can I help you? And so the relationship started, and you have to add value first. And I now I do that, as you and I know, in our relationship. I'm completely, how can I help you first? And I've done that for my entire career, and it's paid off in spades too. So and one of the reasons I wanted to come on today is because I'm an absolute huge believer in what you believe. And that's why we have such a good relationship, because it is about relationships. And it's funny because not everybody, there's an institutional knowledge, I call it institutional knowledge, that we know that these things work, and they work over a long period of time. And everybody knows that. They've heard this, they've read it, but how do they incorporate into their daily lives? That's the tough part.
Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? Let the listeners learn from you, because you are a master. And I do want people to know that what Craig said is 1,000% true. He is always asking, and not just me, because I've been at live events with him and I've seen him say to people that he might have met 5 minutes ago, although don't underestimate Craig. He's a pretty good reader of people. Yeah, he's smiling. He's a good read of people, but he will say to them, how can I help you? What do you need? And I know he's done that for people that I've introduced him to. So how does that play out? What can people learn? What's the skills?
So I wrote a book called The Fantastic Life. And one of the rules of The Fantastic Life is this 2% rule. So I was talking about it yesterday with somebody. So I'll just give you an example. So when if you want institutional relationships with people, what do you do? So I'll just give you something that we started, 2% rule. I created these little note cards, and I'll just hold it up, a little note card on the back. Mm-hmm. I just started 2%. I'm going to write 1 personal handwritten note a week this year. And so now, I'm 30 something weeks into 30 personal handwritten notes to people who aren't expecting them. And it's been interesting. Of the 30 notes that I've written, 20 people have called me immediately or written back to me and said, thank you. This is the most, let's get over. I've done 4,000 lease transactions in my career, 4,000 leases, which is like insane number. And I could count on one hand of the 4,000, how much on any of them I cared about the money I made. So I started this from like, look, I'm not in this to make money. Now, obviously I do make a lot of money and I've done really well. I just figured if I took care of a bunch of people. And so I call it bunt defense because I tie back to the baseball analogy. When I was trying to teach our kids bunt defense, you may in a season, in a like a little league season or a juniors season, you may work on your bunt defense, or you may actually execute bunt defense 5 times in a season. In MLB now, they may do it 10 times out of 160 games. And yet every single practice we worked on bunt defense. And the kids were like, why do we already know what to do? And it's like, it's not what you know what to do. It's what can you do when the situation hits. And so I always call it bunt defense. It's like relationships are like bunt defense. Yeah, of course you know what to do. But when the shit's hitting the fan, are you doing it? When the deal's going sideways, when your client's being a pain in the butt, when they're not calling you back, when they're asking you for the 50th favor, are you doing what you actually do? And you don't rise to your expectations, you actually execute to your abilities that you've practice for. And so I've literally on this 2% rule practiced the relationship piece. And you and I have experience. I do this with all of my people that I have relationships with. It's like, I do more. In all of my relationships, I give more. I would say in 95% of my relationships, I give more than they give me. And I just made that a habit and I love it.
And so you've outworked people, you've outplayed people, and you outgive people. So you seem like a serious kind of guy, like you're a no nonsense kind of guy, right? I mean,
Right.
Can we agree to that?
Yep.
Yet you're very kind, but the word that keeps coming to mind as you're speaking, Craig, is as a leader, and I think it might be helpful for the listeners for you to speak a little bit about this and tie it into relationships. You lead with empathy.
Yeah, you use the word empathy. I use the word, so in my relationship, what I'm trying to do is to get people to trust. So
Trust doctor, perfect.
Yes, right. So I have this, because I have a couple, I have a big team on our real estate side. And then, as you know, I'm an investor in a bunch of other companies, and all of the companies that I have CEOs with, that a large number of them, I'm trying to develop this trust with them on a continued basis. And we're always developing trust. And the key thing that I tell my people, look, there is a huge difference between somebody liking you and somebody trusting you. And I said, I would rather them trust me than like me. And I have a partner, his name's Craig Coppola.
Craig, hang on a second. Explain that difference.
Yeah. So Greg Kafka, this came out of Greg. Greg is the funniest guy. He's the humor on our team. Everybody loves him. They just really like him, but he's not a business generator like me. And I'm like, the difference between you and me, Greg, is, to your point, I'm not the funniest guy in the room, but when people meet me, they go, I trust that guy. And what is that difference? It's the demeanor. It's not necessarily the demeanor. It's the fact that I give first. It's I give often, that I'm value add first. And you're trying to get people to like you. And there's a difference there. And so I've been working with Greg. He's been with me about 11 years now. And we were looking, like, don't be the guy they just like, be the guy they hire and trust. And how do we do that? We do that by adding value to them, not just getting them to like you. So, and I established that from the first, and it's the same with our relationship. We established that from the very first time that we talked. It's like, I'm not here to win the popularity contest. I'm here to win the relationship contest.
So how did you learn that? Who influenced you?
I think, well, first, I'm the third. I'm 3 of 6, but we have 2 families. I have a brother who's 1 year old. I just turned 60. So I have a 61-year-old brother and a 62-year-old brother. So we were all together. So I was the third boy in the family. And I was
triplets.
Yeah, really just close. And I just hung around my older brothers, and I just learned right away, how do you become, you can either become the joker, or you can become, the better athlete, or you can be, there's lots of ways to kind of win people over. And I think my family would say, I'm the black sheep of the family, because I'm the real, of the 6 kids, I'm the only entrepreneur and have done well. And so they said, just always had this kind of nice way about you. And I think it was because I had older brothers that if I got out of line, they would have called me. Now, my family will tell you it's way different. They're like, you're always sticking your foot in your mouth. And so we say in our teams, we speak the unspoken truth. So we are not shy about calling people out. We don't dance around issues. So I think at the end of the day, everybody on my team understands 2 things. 1, that I sincerely care about them and I give first. And 2, that there's no BS that I'm going to give them, that I'm not going to dance through the issues. So we have people, Andrew, who has been with me 20 years. Actually, today is I think it's his 18th year anniversary today. Greg, 11 years, Chelsea, 11 years. And so we have this really core team.
And they're amazing. They are amazing.
Yeah. And the average relationship of my investments now, I started doing this 25 years, 15 years. So they know that I'm part of their team for a long, long time. And I think it's just something that I've grown into. People, it's not natural. So that's the other thing. Everybody says, oh, that's natural. It's like, no, I just think it's something you earn and then you become.
So people know that you're no nonsense, you speak truth to power, and you're on their side.
Yeah, and I will call my own clients out. And sometimes they don't like it. I had a client I travel a lot, and he's a fairly new client. And I told him, I'm going to be in Spain backpacking for 25 days. And he's like,
Back
what?
to the backpacking.
Yeah. So we just got back from Spain, and he was like, wait a minute, you just did this. I did some other trip, and I was, you're with your family for 2 weeks, and now you're going to Spain. Yeah, I said, yes. And I said this, and then the relationship is, if this is, if you want this relationship, you're going to put up with me because I do travel. And you mentioned it. I'm not shy about that. I'm not dancing around that issue. You will like me because I'm available anytime, as you know. When I'm in town, I'm available. And now when I'm backpacking, I'm not available. So we do occasionally have that, and some people don't want it, and that's okay with me. I'm at a point in my life where it's okay if you don't want the relationship that I'm going to have. And you start realizing there are people that will take advantage of those relationships, right? If you're a give first, there are people, and lots of people say, well, I might get taken advantage of. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course you might, but you might actually develop a relationship too.
Well, and also nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? And you can smell a rat a mile away more and more with more wisdom.
It's funny because one of the things how this plays out is referrals. And I've referred you. I refer people that I've gotten to know and trust. I have people that will tell me, oh, well, I never refer anybody because it could come back to me. And I'm like, there it is. You're not developing the relationships. If you can't refer the people that you're hanging out with. So I call myself a collector of unique abilities, right? So Dan Sullivan, which is one of my mentors, and I've been in the coach program, strategic coach program for a long time, he has this concept of unique abilities. I'm like, I'm a unique ability collector. And one of the reasons that you and I have connected is because you have a unique ability. I can't find your skill set anywhere else. And so when you find somebody with a skill set like yours, and then you go, okay, I need to get close to this person. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I am. And so now when you see my life is full of people who have unique abilities outside of mine. And it's an amazing life to see, to have those skill sets. Like we're doing some work to our house. And right now, I'll give you a perfect example. The biggest word on the street right now is if you're trying to build a house or remodel a house, you can't get it done.
Right.
We were talking to somebody last week, and they bought a lot in McCall, Idaho, and they said the earliest they can get a contractor is 2024 to even start the construction. It's crazy. And lumber and all this delays. Well, 24 months ago, we became, or longer now, but we decided to stay in our house and just remodel it. And we have this relationship with somebody that's one of the top developers of custom homes in the Valley of the Sun in Phoenix, Scottsdale. And we called them, and we hired them, and they were more expensive. And everybody else I know was saving money, and they never got their job done. Our job was done on time. It was right. We love being here. It is because of the relationship that we have.
Right.
And now, we're asking them, and they're doing more work now. So, and it's great.
Well, so that's so interesting. So your unique ability is creating relationships that's helped you build a network that is a game changer. It's been a game changer for you. Now, you mentioned earlier about building trust. What can you share with the listeners where the trust has been breached? How have you been able to restore and repair that, or do you even bother?
Yes. The answer is trust, either on my own end, if it's me breaching the trust, which it happens, nobody's perfect. We have the first four non-negotiables on our team are, this is Coppola Cheney is show up on time, do what you say you're going to do, finish what you start, and say please and thank you. Those are the first four. And, it's really hard. We're doing 125 leases a year on our real estate company. So we're closing a deal every 2 days. And we're running with 150 transactions anytime. Stuff falls through the cracks, and we have to own that up. And so we just had a client. He had to sign some paperwork last week. He went to the Nebraska football game, and he, and the buyer's yelling at us, and we're having to own it. So and it's not us, it's our client who dropped the ball, but we're having to own it because we represent him. And I get on the phone. I mean, I'm not shy about it. So the first thing that I do is own your breach, right? Own the issue. And when you own the issue is, and I've been teaching Charlie's working with me now. And so I'm teaching Charlie's.
Charlie's Craig's son, who is an amazing young man.
So Charlie's over here working with me now. And I've been teaching him, make the call right now. So I will stop right there. Immediately, there is no thinking. If there's a breach, I make the call immediately. All right. And then we start repairing immediately if we can. And how do we repair? We go back to the core values, which are we're going to over deliver. Now, if the breach is on the other side, then you typically give them an opportunity to come back and do it. And after the second time, then I'm pretty much I'm eliminating people that are trust breakers in my life. I don't have those. I'm at a point where I'm okay eliminating those. Now,
you'll give them one mulligan, and then after that, they're done.
Yeah. And now the question is, and I know people on your podcast say, well, I have family members who do that. And I would tell you that in my own family, I have we have some of those, and that's because we're a big family. And those family members, I'm simply not, I do the minimal, but I'm okay. I just really want to feel good. I've lost some really key people in my life over the last couple of years, including both of my parents and Bill Lee. As you know, Bill Lee was one of my second father. And in my mind now, it's just like, did I have the relationship I wanted with them when they passed? And so everybody in my life, if I were to pass today, or if you were to pass today, did I have the relationship with DPA that I wanted? And the answer is yes. And if the answer is yes,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, right. And when the answer is yes, then I go away from all relationships. Like, do I have the relationship with my wife, my 4 kids, if something were to happen today, and all of my teammates? The answer is yes. And I did have a couple of people that were kind of out there, and I breached that breached my trust. And I've reached out to them, and I've cleaned it up. It's been interesting. One guy I lent money to, I did a favor, and he ended up paying me back, but it took him a lot longer, and it was a fairly substantial amount of money. And I didn't talk to him for a couple of years. I had lunch with him maybe 6 months ago, and it's a good relationship now. It's like, okay, I have cleaned up all of those. So I feel really at peace with the relationships because of the trust and the unique abilities and where I am. And so that's just a long-term thought.
That is great. And, the example you gave for Charlie, pick up the phone and call. If you're respected, if people trust you, they can hear things that they might not want to hear. So it's not a popularity contest, right? But it is great. Usually you hear your faults and your flaws from your enemies. How many friends will share with you things that are difficult to hear, but essential to your growth? And you can only do that if they trust you.
You mentioned earlier, this is a really critical point. I've actually had somebody today who never wants to do postmortems. The guy I was with a client, he said, no, he will never do that. We are exactly opposite. We're like the SEAL teams. Every operation we're doing postmortem. So we started this in our team. As you mentioned, I won this really huge award. It's really a lifetime achievement award. Only 20 people had won it in Phoenix, which is the NAAP Lifetime Achievement. I know they call it Award of Excellence. Yeah, it's a cool award. They had a dinner for it. 900 people come to the dinner, right? And I'm doing my little talk. And we have this postmortem. I thought the 900 were there for me, but as it turned out, it was the 900 because we had been in COVID for a year and they all just wanted to come out. So
wait, it's not all about you?
Dang it. So I do my little speech, and within 3 minutes after my speech, I can feel my phone buzz in my pocket, and it's a text. So like 15 minutes later, I'm off the stage. I'm over there. I look at my text, and it was from Andrew. And it was postmortem on my speech. Here's what went great. Here's what's doing. Here's the 2 things that I would have changed. And I'm like, there it is, right? There is. To me, that's what I remember about the night, is that we've trained each other so much on this night that it wasn't just, hey, Craig, good job, you've earned this. It was, Craig, here's your speech. People really love this. Here's 2 things I would have changed. And it's like, that's pretty cool.
So you're always aspiring for better, for more, for what? Always aspiring for what?
Kaizen,
What's
continuous
that?
improvement. It's a Japanese term for continuous improvement.
Okay, see,
Always.
I'm comfortable letting you know that I don't speak Japanese, so I had to ask.
No,
Got it.
Kaizen is a word.
Taekwondo days?
Taekwondo is a Korean.
Korean, right? Okay.
Yeah, Kaizen's a Japanese word, but we have this thing. We will get better. I'm a learner and I want to get better. And it's funny because we've just normalized it, and we will tell each other, this didn't work. What do we get out of this? And I do that with my kids, and they just look at me like, people aren't used to that. And I'm like,
Right.
I want that feedback. I want it from you. After today, I want you to go, hey, Craig, you said too many ahs or whatever it is. I want the feedback.
Mhm.
I did a podcast yesterday, and they turned off the recording, and I said, give me some feedback. He goes, you told these 2 stories that were fantastic. And then he said, and then I would have done this a little bit differently. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want. And when you look at that, I look back and I have 1,000 seminars where I've gone to over my career, and I've taken notes on all 1,000.
Oh, you're a note taker. I can attest to that.
Yep. And so to me, it's learning, getting better, growing. There's no finish line, right? There is no finish line. And that was one of my points that I made in that speech, is the previous winners all won it. And I appreciate you saying that earlier. When Craig won the Bill Lee Award, right? I won that award. I kept going. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to take the award tonight. And what am I going to do tomorrow? I'm going to get up and go to work again.
Right.
Well,
Well, that's you. I know you. So it's never, good enough is never good enough.
yeah.
There's so much value that you can add for people. I mean, I just sit here and you take notes when we have our calls. I'm just soaking this in, right? I just have a different style than you. What would you say is the most important takeaway you would like to share with the listeners to help them live the life that's made you fulfilled?
So if you look at what I call the fantastic life, so if you look at that, what is the fantastic life to me? So the fantastic life is to, first of all, understand what the most important things are in your life: people, goals, relationships. What are those? And get super clear on what you want out of life, right? Super clear. And that clarity is always changing. What you wanted when you were raising your kids, and when you had the twin, it changes. And so you have to continually always be thinking about that. So the clarity of purpose and what you want and the relationships that you want is the first thing you have to have. And then I think the fantastic life is not a singular life. And we've seen some tragic falls from that, like a Tiger Woods, where, he was so focused on Tiger being the best player ever and we see this all the time in athletics. We see this all the time in these super driven guys like a Steve Jobs who, changed the world, but didn't have time for his first child from his first marriage, and for me, it was like, okay, what's important? I want to be a great husband. We just celebrated 32 years. I want to be a great dad. And I think if my kids were here, they'd say, I've been a great dad. I want to agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I want to be really super. I want to be, I call a full-time athlete. I want to continue to be a full-time athlete. I want to build a successful business. I want to do all of these things. I want to travel the world. All of these things are in there. And the fantastic life is the ability, the takeaway is you can do all these things. And I say this all the time. You can have anything you want in life. You simply can't have everything.
Everything.
And so the idea is to narrow your life down into what the fantastic life is for you. And you can get 3 or 4. I've been able to, over a long period of time, get 5 things, but you're not going to get 10 things. They go, like the millennials today are like, well, I want to get up and I want to have my chai, and then I want to meditate for half an hour. Then I want to take the dog for a walk, and then I'm going to make $1 million. And then I'm going to, sit there and I'm going to binge watch at night. And then I'm going to read. And it's like, well, okay, you're not going to get much accomplished.
Right. Well, I think so. So what you're saying is you have to be focused and you have to be intentional.
Absolutely. Focused, absolutely intentional. And rule number 2 of mine is get clarity in what you want, right? You have to have clarity. When you say intentional, it means clarity.
And if you don't know what you want, who else will know? And what
That's right.
how do you know what resources to pull?
That's right.
Oh my gosh. This is great. All right. So I'd like to close on some fun questions. You game?
Okay.
All right. If you could have lunch with anybody in history at any time, who would it be and why?
Well, I thought long and hard about that. I
never asked before. How could you have thought?
No, I've heard this question. It's like, who do you want to have dinner with? And I used to always say Thomas Jefferson. But today, after having lost, some critical people in my life and having gone through health issues with my own, I would say Jesus of Nazareth, because I'd want to have a conversation with Jesus. I'd want to know.
Know what?
I just want to have a conversation. I'd want to know.
Are you getting through those pearly gates?
I'd want to know. I'd want to know. I'm reading a book right now by an atheist, and I'm Christian. And it's really interesting how it's a guy named Seth. He's a super smart guy, but how he draws the conclusions. And I've drawn a different.
Well, religion's based on faith, not intelligence, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Finish what you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. When you and I were growing up, they said there's no way there's other life on any other planet. And literally in the last 10 years, they found like 15,000 Earth-like planets in our own solar system, much less the Milky Way, much less the universe. So it's like, there's other life out there. Who created this life? I like the answer. So to me, it's kind of a bigger question.
Okay. Well, it's interesting though, what you just said about what we learned when we were growing up. So much of leadership and so much of success and growth today, and I'm seeing this more and more, is unlearning what we learned for new learnings, for new paradigms. And you also mentioned that I know you're a big reader. We've shared books, right?
Yeah.
We've shared very deep books and very fun books. So what's the one book you'd like the listeners to read that's moved you and why?
Ooh, okay. So the book.
Well, you haven't heard that one before.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get unique. I want to share my unique ability in questioning.
So I would challenge myself to say, what is the one book I've given the most out to, that I've bought extras of? And over my career, that book has changed. The first book that I gave everybody when I was younger is a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is a financial, how do I get out of the rat race? Because 98% of all people are stuck and mired in the morass of mendacity of their life. And then when my kids are growing up, the book I gave out is a book by Meg Joy called The Defining Decade, which is about the 20s.
Yep.
It's a fabulous book about what you should be accomplishing in your 20s. And the book that I've been giving out now, because I'm kind of since 2013 on this kind of spiritual journey, if you will, in faith and spirit and peace, becoming really at peace with myself. And I give out The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer a lot. So The Untethered Soul is the book that I've probably bought the most of in the last 5 years. So it's changed.
And why? Why The Untethered Soul?
Michael, I've read, there's a whole bunch of books, The Power of Now, the kind of Eckhart Tolle stuff, the Tao, the Ching, right? That's the seminal book. But the way Michael Singer writes it, it just talks about getting peace in your life while you're here and you got a shot on it. And he kind of explains it. It just hit me pretty good. And so there's just chapters that allow you to get more peace with your life. So it may not be, how to make the most money, but there's 3 books that I've given you. And then obviously the book I had out the most is, one of my 5 books, but The Fantastic Life is the one that I give out. And I'm rewriting it right now. So we're adding it was kind of a manual, and now we're making it more of a big book. So we're rewriting. It's called The Fantastic Life Revisited, which it's at the 10th anniversary, we'll publish it again.
All right. Well, on that note, that's a great way to wrap up this podcast, The Trust Doctor. You gave many, many, many great pieces of information on how to restore trust and repair significant relationships. And how may people learn more about you or follow you or be able to reach out so that they can get the fantastic life when it comes out, or perhaps purchase the first
it's
one?
out. Yeah, you'd probably want to pick it up now because it's an easy read today. And so, you can Google me, just Coppola, Craig, our Craig. There's another Craig Coppola, but it's our Craig. And then just go on Amazon and type in author R. Craig Coppola, and my book.
Spell your last name, Craig, for them, so they know whether it's two P's or one L.
Yes, it's like Francis Ford, Coppola, Coppola.
Great.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I could talk. I truly could talk to you all day.
We do talk a lot. Yes,
we do. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Once again, we've concluded another great episode of The Trust Doctor with Dr. Patty Ann. Tune in next week for more insights and advice on how you can create, nurture, and sustain healthy relationships. To find out more about the podcast, visit drpattyann.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Until next time.